This week, I thought the dolls might be in the mood to go back to school, so I decided to make a cork board, a couple of chalkboards, and a wipe-off board. And of course, you can change the size to make them fit in any scene you want to use. So join me and see how easy this project is. Alright, so first let's talk about what we need. We need some wood. I bought this 24-inch strip of 1/16 by 2-inch basswood, and it was a whole $2.29. You can get a lot of pieces out of that. For the size I'm making, I decided to make my boards 2 inches by 3 inches today. Now you can make yours any size you want depending on where you're going to use them. This would be the size my kids had chalkboards and bulletin boards and stuff in their rooms when they were little. They were about 2 feet by 3 feet. So that's the size I'm making. If you're making a classroom or a daycare center, you might want to make them bigger. You might want to make them smaller. Make them the size you want. Just think about, translate it to from inches or from real life size down to miniature. Then for our wood frame, I just bought some wood-grained scrapbooking paper. It's kind of a heavier cardstock, and I've cut strips. And for our surfaces, because I don't want to paint, I know I've seen directions for making chalkboards before, and they just paint the wood. Couple of problems with that. Number one, it's really hard to cover the wood grain. Also, because paint is wet, it tends to warp a piece of wood this size. So to get around that, I bought scrapbook paper. Again, cardstock. I got black and I got green for our 2 chalkboards. It's not exactly chalkboard green, but it's close. I got a piece that looks like cork board. Now you can get cork paper that's actually cork in some scrapbook stores. I just went to Joann Fabrics and they didn't have it. This I got at Craft Warehouse along with the wood, and they also did not carry the cork, but my daughter says that the Michaels she works at does. For our wipe-off board, there'll be 2 layers. A piece of white cardstock, and this, although it's hard to see on camera, is a lid off of something from the bakery. One of those clear plastic, the same clear plastic that we used, type of plastic we used for those Trash to Treasure art glass pieces. I'm only going to do one of these pieces on camera, and then I'll do the rest off camera because watching me glue these over and over and over would be really boring. So take a piece of wood. I'm using just a glue stick, just a plain old, this happens to be an Elmer's school glue stick. Turn your paper upside down so you're ready, because this does not stay workable very long, especially not with my camera lights on. And I might have to do this without the off camera entirely because I'm not sure this is going to stay workable. And I mismeasured, so that's why there's extra lines. And just glue it on. I cut these in about 2-inch strips. I can cut them down. There. That's our cork piece. Now this glue needs to dry, and then I'll trim right to the edges of the wood. I'll glue the rest on. This will wait until we're ready for it. And when these are glued and dried, I'll be back. Alright, so the glue is dry on all of these, and now the white one is going to have an extra step. We are going to take some more school glue. I've trimmed the paper all down to size now. And I tried this on a scrap. It seems to work just fine. I'll cut this to size. Make sure your plastic is clean on both sides, because if you've got anything on there, in my house that means usually cat hair, that would show up underneath. So now this needs to just set, and it would be best if you put a weight on it, but it's probably not necessary, so that needs to dry. So now let's start with our frames. Now, when I made the blackboard for the farm stand last year, I did basically this up to this step. I did the same thing. I took a piece of board, I cut it to size, I glued on actually black paper to make the chalkboard. And that was great. And then I put a wood frame around it. But like I always do, I struggled to get those mitered corners. So I came up with an alternative. That's why we have wood grained scrap paper. Right, the only wood grain I could get the other day was wood grain on one side, and then it had this aged paint look on the other side. So we're ignoring the back side. Yours may or may not have that. I cut 3/4 inch wide strips, and then 1/4 of an inch from the one edge I drew a pencil line. And we are going to, my idea is, I'm going to go, probably would have been best to do this way. Now for this step I'm using tacky glue. For most of the rest of this we're actually going to use the glue stick. Now I want to line up the bottom of my board with that 1/4 inch line. And this first one will have to dry, so I think I'll get this far on all of them, and then I'll be back. The glue is set up, and if this one actually tipped over, but that's okay. I've stood it back up because for right now we are just gluing the sides. And what I did, I kind of bent this around so I have an idea how far I want to glue. And what I want to overlap that beginning part about that far. Not very far, just a little bit. So we're going to run glue right along that pencil line. The pencil line is optional, but it's just a way of making sure I stay going straight. So glue there. And again, we are going to try and stay straight so that we have a nice looking frame on this. And this is really the only, what I would call fiddly part of this project. Oops, I need to glue that down. That. And glue that. And now this helps if you happen to have been born with 5 hands. It probably would help on this project, but I wasn't. All right. Now, this glue needs to dry. And when this is dry, I will trim this off right at the bend, there where the corner is. So this needs to dry. I'm going to do the same thing with the others, and then we'll be back. All right, so these have dried now, or pretty much dried, so we'll go back to our chalkboard one here. Now what I want to do is cut that right at the corner. That will hide our seam a little bit. And on each of these corners, you want to fold your corner really sharp. And then cut right up to the board. And do the same thing on the front. This is just so you can fold it where you need it. And if you didn't get this even, like I've got a little bit of the inside piece is a little taller than the outside, so I'll trim it. Okay, now we need to fold these in. Fold these down. If you don't want mitered corners, you could actually glue it now, but we are actually going to make this look like it has mitered corners. To do that, we'll take this corner first. We're going to work on the front and the back at the same corner, so we're going to use this end as an example. Got it folded, and I'm going to cut I'm cutting the point of my scissors in the very corner, like that. Now I'm going to do the same thing, and if it doesn't go right, we'll be able to check it before we glue. The same thing in the back. We're even going to have mitered corners on our back. And if you're unsure about this, do the back side first. That way, if you make a mistake, you make the mistake on the back. So we have this ready to go. So now, I'm going to fold it back. I don't want to get glue stick on the black part, only on the back side of my wood frame. Get this out of my way. If you get it on the black, it will show. And right here, same thing. Those extra bits out. And now you'll need something to clamp it with. I'm going to use this. I showed how to make this clamp on my Thursday's video. I'm actually going to use the small one too. Oh, actually, here's the one I made the other day. I knew that wasn't it. Here's my clamp. It's just about perfect size. And now we'll let that glue set up, and I'll come back and I'll do the same at this end and then the sides. And when I get all four sides glued, I'll come back and show you how it looks. All right, well, these are all done. They're all dry. I did find that the cardstock was kind of hard to work with, so I found another sheet of wood grained scrapbook paper I had that's a real light. It's really not much heavier than, say, computer paper. And this I did on the green one. It worked a lot better. So keep that in mind. If you can find lighter weight wood grain paper, it will work better. The clamps really do help. I actually used the 3 and the 4 to do this project. And I need to re-glue the end of that one, and some of them aren't perfectly straight because I was kind of rushing to get it done. If you take your time, you'll get them. Yours will turn out really good. So, oh, and if you want to write on the chalkboard, you obviously won't be able to erase it again, but to write on the chalkboard, I usually use just regular colored pencils. They come out looking like chalk. That's what I used in the farm stand last summer. It looks like chalk on the board, and you can get white or colors, and they're easy to handle. You can get them sharp so they make a good size line. So I hope you enjoyed this project. Be sure and read the blog. I'm sure I'll have some more things on there. Be sure and check the Facebook page, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.